Directed and co-written by Adam Krause, we are talking Gags the Clown from 2018, a found footage movie that is inspired by the real life events where people were kind of dressing up as clowns and being kind of spooky for a brief time in pop culture history there. So the movie actually follows a variety of people. We have a pair of police officers out on patrol. We have a local podcaster, like conservative podcaster. We have a kind of group of young people who are kind of being a copycat to this Gags the Clown, and then we have this news reporter. So we follow this group of people. We get a few others here and there. And this follows one night where this particular kind of town has been menaced, I guess, by this individual dressed as a clown for the kind of the past week or so, and it's effectively making this kind of neighbourhood go into kind of fever pitch, and it is getting a lot of kind of attention worldwide and stuff. So everyone kind of wants to be part of it, either to kind of take advantage or to kind of like prank people and things like this. So we follow these individuals as they try and discover who this Gags the Clown is that we see peppered through the movie, what his motivation is, what he's up to, and is there something supernatural potentially kind of going on? What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let's discuss. So a found footage movie, but done in a sort of a style where you are following like multiple different protagonists. The movie also has footage from things like news reports, security cameras. So it's not like a found footage in some respects where it's just following a couple of cameras. It's loads of cameras across multiple people and sort of static cameras. So the movie has a quicker pace than maybe some found footage movies, because you have multiple different angles varying between handheld interviews, security cameras, things like this. So it has a lot more of a kinetic energy to it than maybe some. I do think this movie genuinely has some kind of creepy moments, and the movie plays what's actually going on to be a little vague. I mean, it gives you some hints that what the history may be behind this Gags the Clown, and hints towards something very nefarious. For example, this Gags the Clown has these kind of black balloons that, if popped in your vicinity, cover you in some type of dust, which makes you seemingly become under his control and do kind of self-harm and things like this. So it has some like somewhat sort of creepy vibes to it. There is evidence that this is supernatural, and we see a couple of things that could not be explained by just some guy dressed up as a clown. So it has some creepy elements, some eerie atmosphere going on without really giving you all of the answers. This is a movie that is not going to tell you everything, but gives you hints towards what's kind of going on. And I think where the sequences where we do see our Gags the Clown, they never spend too much time on him. You never get extended looks. We never really see him do anything really other than kind of just be there. But the way that the movie depicts this makes him feel all the more creepy. And I also kind of quite like the fact where we have different groups of antagonists, all of whom are wanting different things. We've got an ambitious reporter, we've got police that are just trying to kind of follow and do their jobs. We've got this kind of podcaster who feels he wants to prove himself, and these young people who just want to kind of prank and cause mischief ultimately. So everyone's there for their own reasons, and we ultimately these characters will kind of cross paths, particularly kind of towards the end of the film. So you're never really focusing on one particular group of characters. So it gives it an air of kind of unpredictability, to be honest with you. So you're never quite sure where this movie's gonna end up. But there's a couple of things that are maybe, you know, you can kind of guess that will happen that do. You know, ultimately we've got some guy as a copycat dressing up as a clown, and you can probably guess things that will happen with him. But nonetheless, I do feel the movie does a good job of kind of keeping you on edge. And I think this is one of the key things of this movie is it can boast a good atmosphere. It's genuinely quite unsettling at times without being necessarily a movie that relies on jump scares or gore or anything like that, but just a good sort of building of atmosphere without really ever showing you masses of stuff. And I think the variety of different protagonists, again, it really makes you feel like all of these lives, all of these characters, you know, could you know, what fate might befell them, and no one is like got plot armor on or anything like that. Where this movie doesn't work quite as well, I think the whole concept of found footage is a little bit sort of like you have to sort of have a degree of suspension of disbelief to a large point. Now with found footage, one of the conceits is you have to believe, or at least, you know, buy into the fact that the footage that you are watching has come from some sort of, you know, legitimate source. The problem here is that where we have so many different sources, we've got security cameras, news footage, police body cams, people taking stuff on their phones, and it's all collected into one narrative with a variety of different kind of cuts and edits and different kind of angles and things. You're thinking, well, how is this kind of footage all got sort of collated? And also we've got like music and a soundtrack kind of playing over it. So the conceit of found footage is a little bit sort of missed here. So if you want a film which really genuinely leads into that kind of found footage conceit and makes it a believable found footage movie, that isn't the case here. This almost feels more like a traditionally filmed movie masquerading as a found footage movie, so it does lose that sort of rawness where you might get a found footage which kind of sticks to the kind of the rules and the conceit of a found footage to be that more realistic. So there is that. I think there are some mixed performances here. Let me just say this. I think there are some individuals out of our groups of protagonists that kind of over-egg it a little bit, I will say. And not everyone, I think there are, and I'm not going to point out who, but there are some individuals where I feel their performances aren't particularly strong and maybe a little bit over the top. There's also some conveniences in this movie. I have to say, you know, don't really kind of make sort of logical sense. There are some things here that I think are just unexplained, and you just have to accept that this is some type of spooky thing that's happened. So, you know, again, the movie is not trying to give you all of the answers, but I feel ultimately, you know, you've just got to accept that's the way the movie wants to do it, and therefore it might be a little sort of unsatisfying for some. And just the merest hints about what's kind of going on. Overall, though, I gotta say, it took a while for me to kind of get into the groove of this movie, because you never really focuses on any one particular kind of character group, especially, and it's constantly kind of flitting all over the place. It does have a somewhat of a confused feel to a large degree. But I did sort of start to get more invested as the film went on, where you kind of maybe get to know our characters. It just takes a little bit a long time to get there, because the movie is constantly, you know, editing and cutting for different groups of people. You never really feel like you settle until the movie's runtime is, you know, quite advanced. I will give it a 6 out of 10 though. I do think the movie is quite effective as a horror and quite creepy, and has some good kind of visuals ultimately. It's a little bit of a mixed bag, but ultimately I think it's still a little bit of a fun one. Have you seen it? What were your thoughts? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.